drive results, but also to inspire, engage, and understand their teams at a deeper level. That's where psychology comes in, not as theory alone, but as a practical toolkit to enhance leadership, decision making, resilience, and team dynamics. So, over the course of this session, we'll explore how modern managers can leverage psychological insights to lead with empathy, manage change effectively, and foster high performing inclusive teams. Please engage, reflect. We encourage you to participate, take away actionable strategies that you can immediately apply in your professional journey. Okay. So once again, I welcome you all. My name is Ruchika. I'm the Associate Course Leader at Uni Athena. Welcome everyone to today's webinar on the psychology advantage of for modern managers. Now, before we begin this session and I introduce our guest speaker, I want to ask all of you, what is that one quality that you all admire the most in a manager or a leader that you have worked with? Please feel free to use the chat box. Yes, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us from different parts of the world. Okay, so Dr. Asta, we have interesting answers coming our way. Communication, empathy, honesty, PhD. Okay, communication skills, collaboration, empathy. I think empathy is scoring the highest till now. Clear communication, understanding, integrity, passion. Okay, sure, Wilbert. Integrity, understanding and respect, active listening. Very interesting. Yes, all of these are extremely crucial. Clear vision, communication. My question to everyone is, before I introduce our speaker, what is that one quality that you admire the most in a manager or a leader that you all have worked with? Emotional intelligence. Yes. Empathy, communication, passiveness, patience, sorry, assertiveness. Yes. Okay, great. Thank you so much. Let's see what Dr. Asta has in store for us. Okay, thank you. Thank you for joining everyone. Now, before I hand over, the mic to her, I wanted to introduce you all that it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Asta Sachdeva. She is a counseling psychologist with 20 plus years of experience. She holds degrees in psychology, education, and a PhD in management and psychology. She's the founder of uh, Counsel, and she conducts impactful workshops on mental health, gender, sexuality, and leadership for schools, universities, and corporates. She's an award winning author and contributor to CBSE curriculum of psychology. She has guided students for global university admissions and actively promotes mental health awareness through trainings, webinars, and memberships. And she has memberships in national and international councils. That's amazing. Welcome, Dr. Asta Sachdeva. Thank you so much for sharing your experience with us. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you, Ruchika, for setting the stage. And I am so delighted to be here this afternoon in IST, and for you all, maybe from different time zones. Thank you for this opportunity, Uni Athena, to let me interact with a lot of professionals to be, etc. Um, you all are so enlightened and aware and sensitive already that I feel there's hardly any more contribution that I can do, because most of the characteristics that we will be talking about today. The rules of psychology in management actually entails the entire list of characteristics which have come up in the chat box. So thank you all for responding. And, I hope to hear more responses from you going along the session, because otherwise it will become a monotonous monologue, which we do not want, right? And so it is great. Thank you for responding. And here, I hope my screen is properly visible. I'll just take you to the let's start. So with that was Ruchika had set a beautiful stage with her beautiful question for today's conversation. And I think we will take that little forward in terms of dwelling into another moment of self reflection. So, if you all can manage to pull out your mobile phones, if you are already on the mobile, you will see a QR code. And I would love for you all to take a moment and scan this code. Please let us know in the chat box if you face a challenge. Scan this code, and there are a few questions, very few questions, not too many, but I'd really appreciate if you all can um, take the time to respond to these questions, please. Just give a yes in the chat box if you are able to scan it and open the Mentimeter link. It'll help us at least, communicate, be on the same page, right?
Yes, most of the people are responding as yes.
Okay, great, great, great.
For all those asking how to scan, you can use your phone's camera. You will get a link. You need to click on it and it will take you to the link.
So we'll just spend a few moments on completing this, and then we'll move further.
Um, so to answer some of the questions, we are not rating the meeting yet. We are answering a form. Okay.
Okay, what I'll do is Ruchika, can you please confirm if this screen of Mentimeter is visible on my screen to you all?
Yes, it is.
Okay, great. So if you can see, we have started receiving responses. First question to this was, do you feel emotionally drained after work?
Uh,
13%.
Sorry, we're still seeing the PPT.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so that's why I asked. Wait, okay. So I'll have to, sorry, go back and forth between the screen sharing, or I can just announce maybe what scores we have got. But wait, okay, I'll have to stop sharing and reshare it. I would like people to see the, what is it visible now, the Menti screen?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so the first question to this was, do you feel emotionally drained after work? 44% were like neutral, somewhere in the middle, and 42% said strongly agree. Okay, so right now let's not judge, um, but let's just take a look at what the trend is like. Are you able to set healthy boundaries between work and professional life? I think I'm still receiving responses on this one. um, Rarely is the lowest, occasionally is the highest. People are struggling. 37 responses say that people are struggling to establish boundaries between work and professional, personal and professional life. Do you feel confident in addressing conflicts among your colleagues in a respectful manner? Mostly you are confident. Occasionally, maybe the confidence wavers. So, in conflict situations, it's like it's in between. Do your colleagues effectively listen to and value each other's perspectives? Occasionally is the highest response, rarely is the lowest. Okay, mostly is somewhere in between. All right. Are differences in perspectives in in ideas talked through and resolved without carrying the burden further? So occasionally they are resolved, mostly is the second highest, and rarely is the third. And yet we do see there are responses in rarely also. Do you feel supported by your team members and managers in times of stress and difficulty? Okay, mostly is 33. We can see the responses, right? I would want you to focus on this, take a mental note of this as we take our discussion forward today. Not only because, this gives us insights into, it may feel like this is a very momentary, response, but even the few responses that are on that rarely curve will be helpful for us to see, what and how can be done better. Overall, I feel a sense of balance and well-being at my workplace. Occasionally is 47, 36 say mostly, and 14 again say rarely. So all right. So this is what we have. From the responses for us to go forward, to take our discussion for today forward. So I'll just share my screen one more time. Allow me a moment, please. All right, right here. Yeah, so thank you all for responding. It actually shows us, the value of this conversation that Uni Athena thought of having with you all of us together discussing this concept. It's really valuable because, if you see that even the categories which said rarely still had 15 to 20 responses, somewhere in that range, which statistically speaking may be a minority, but at the same time sometimes the minority responses get denied and unheard, and and that's where the real problem also begins for organizations. So okay, one question for you again, to probably put responses in the chat box, or like share your thoughts. Why does psychology matter so much in management? If you think of anything, you can put it in the chat box. Why do you think psychology matters in management? Maybe one word, one line answer. If there are responses, Ruchika, you can help me with that. But
Sure.
what is your thought on the relevance of psychology? What is your understanding of psychology, and why should we talk about it in management?
So, Basil says to read keys personality,
Okay,
to read key personalities.
right.
Then Birbal says to manage the emotions of people. Farzana says because we have to deal with human, we have to show compassion and empathy. Then Saira says to get inside of one's personality, understand emotions at workplace. Important to put yourself in others' shoes and understand how to adapt your leadership style. Able to manage workplace conflicts, able to able to assess unexpressed emotions of subordinates.
Thank
And
you. Thank you all. Yeah. Yes, please go
yeah,
ahead.
yeah. Responding to situations, it's actually just going zoom up, you know,
Oh,
to understand why people behave the way they do. Yeah, well, you're dealing with people and you need to understand their behavior.
awesome. Thank you. You're a lovely audience. You can give a pat
Thank you
on your
so much.
back for all these responses. Okay. So, do you recognize these people? Most of us are able to. Yeah. We have a player here, a famous football player. We have a singer. We have an influencer. What do these people have in common? What they are trying to do is, or what they have done through their lives is, in the process of excelling in their own domain, they have been able to influence not just thousands or lakhs, they have been able to influence people in millions. Go through their Instagram accounts and YouTube channels. These are the people who have the highest subscribers and followers on social media, right? So, what are we talking about here? That we don't see them in management positions as such. All of them are into creative fields, and yet they are able to execute an influence in their own way. And how do we execute an influence? Like you all beautifully responded, that you cannot influence another person unless you enter their shoes, unless you try to understand from their perspective. And hence, what do you need? You need to understand the psyche, the psychology of human behavior, right? So, so drawing from here, what are the major tasks of any manager? Somebody, when we say the word manager, what comes to your mind? That they're managing. And what is it that they are managing? Managing means, you know organizing, putting things together, running the show. They may not be directly doing stuff, they may be coordinating, they may be like putting things together, they may be planning things, but they are engaged with a wide variety of people and bringing them all on a common platform. So, if we were to look at the tasks or the roles that a manager plays, do you think we can categorize them into these 2 points broadly? Most of you said that why do we need to understand this is because a manager needs to understand the variety of people that they are engaging in, right? So the second point here says management. And the first point here is about what is my another task as a manager. making decisions all the time. Now, whether it is related to whom to recruit, whom to have in a certain team, what will the short term goals look like, what will the long term goals look like, how, who is the right fit for which role, so multiple decisions have to be taken on not just a monthly or an annual basis, but on day to day basis, right? And there are factors which determine these decisions. So I'd like you to also now take a moment to reflect. Maybe write down one situation. I'll give you 2 minutes for this. Write down one situation in which you may have had to take a decision, a tough decision at your workplace, or if you are a student, a manager in training, through your course of whatever work you have done, a tough decision. What are the factors which determined? What were those things which you were considering while arriving at that decision? So what is decision making? I have choices in front of me. I have three choices. I need to eliminate two, pick one. So what factors did you keep in mind to eliminate those two or three choices and then pick the top one out of your available alternatives? So I would like you to think about one situation that may have been difficult for you, tough for you to make a decision. And keeping that in mind, write down what were the factors that affected that decision making process. You can write it down on a piece of paper, you can make a mental note of it, right? And then when we talk about management, think about what exactly is the manager managing. So you can again make a mental note of it or write down on a piece of paper that who do you think, what do you think is the manager managing? Have you heard of this very often? We have heard of this quite a lot, that people don't leave jobs, they leave bad managers. Where does this come from? you know as human beings, as managers, we are now touching upon the theory, the psychological theory of going back to these two things, decision making and of management. Now, as human beings, think of your brain as something which is always in a tug of war situation between, you've heard of that rabbit and tortoise story, where the rabbit is swift and fast and quick to action, whereas the tortoise is slow and like takes it easy, right? So when we think about the role of a manager, the role um, of a decision maker, they are always faced with these two choices. The rabbit, who's fast and swift, and the tortoise, picking between the two. Now, what do you often see in management and leadership roles? You often see rabbits sitting in suits taking decisions, things which are happening on a rigorous note, like quick, very swift decision making process. But what do you really need? You need to really check whether you are letting your rabbit overpower, whether you are putting your rabbit in the driver's position, right? So if you slow down a little bit, then it'll give you the power, the authority to also, take a thoughtful decision. Now, this in psychological behavior, this process of the dual functioning of the brain is referred to as the dual process theory, Why did I talk about both the rabbit and the tortoise? Because that's how the duality of the human brain is. And same is the case when you reach a management position, you reach a position of leadership, where there will be times when you will be required to take swift action. But at that point, is your brain functioning fast, but in an emotional and reactive manner? Or are you choosing to go slow and steady in a more rational manner? So that is the dual process theory. And from there, we come to understanding that, our brain has certain, we all know that, there is an emotional brain and there is a rational brain. Now, the emotional brain will, sometimes in that um, urgency of getting the work done, urgency when there are mails, sitting in our inbox, sometimes, to prove or to appear swift in our roles. So we have been told that in corporate cultures, you have to appear a certain way, your response time has to be this much, etc. In that urgency, we do not realize sometimes that we hit the reply all button and we have sent a mail which was to be sent to one person to like 100 people on the mailing list. So, your emotional brain is something like that. It's restless, it's impulsive, it hits the reply all button. But what is it that is required of you? It will work well. It will work still okay if you are an independent worker whose work is not contingent on others. But when we are talking about management, we are talking about a context, and that context cannot be taken away from a person. So what would be helpful in this case is understanding that duality of the brain and activating the pause and the rationality of a side of the brain, like which is the cortex, activating the cortex and lowering the response of the amygdala, which is the emotional regulator for us, right? So how can we do that? We've heard of a lot of exercises, we've heard that deep breathing helps. What it does help us in, it enables us to give a pause. Whenever you engage yourself into a process of deep breathing, you are able to give a pause of at least 10 seconds before you reply, right? Or before you take an action. And that pause, those 10 seconds, 20 seconds, or 1 minute that you spend with yourself on your breath, makes a sea difference in terms of the response that will go from our desks when we are trying to manage a team and tasks and deadlines, etc. Right? So that is, the and like scientists in the domain of neuroscience have said that brain has a big role to play in our rationality and in our decision making process, and in our emotional behaviors also, and how we manage our emotions as well. And why is it that it is so important for you? If you're a leader, if you're a manager, if you are somebody who's working along with a lot of people, why does it become so important for you to behave a certain way, to project a certain way, to depict your rationality, in a certain way, in your behavior, in your demeanor, in your decision making process? Why is it so important? Because of something called the mirror neurons in your brain. So, what mirror neurons tell you is that, have you ever experienced that, you spoke to a friend who is really feeling anxious, okay, really anxious about a certain situation in their life, and you've been great in all of what you said in your chat box. You've been an active listener, you have tried to empathize with your friend, you have been there, you're trying to communicate with them in their time of, in their tough times, in their time of misery. Have you ever experienced that after you hear them out, have a long conversation with that anxious friend of yours, with a sad friend of yours, or a colleague of yours? Have you noticed a shift in your energy levels? Just put me a response in the chat box in terms of a yes or a no. Have you noticed a shift in your energy levels um, after having to listen to, actively listening to um, an anxious side of your friend or a sad sob story of a colleague of yours? Did you notice that even if you were calm after listening to that story, you have become a little more sad, a little more anxious, a little more disturbed than you originally were when you started the conversation? So just put a yes or a no so that I know uh, that you're with me.
Yes, there are there are many people who've said yes.
Okay. Thank you, Ruchika, for confirming. So, what does that indicate? That our brain has mirror neurons, which means that we start internalizing and imbibing the energy of the people around us. Hence, in the case of a manager, a leader, somebody who is trying to keep the team working along, you know, it becomes so important to, um, because you are the one that is being emulated, right? Your behavior is being emulated by a lot of people around you. Hence you want to make sure that your behavior is directed in a manner which you would like for others to kind of emulate, observe, and internalize, and make it a part of their personality and their work behavior as well, right? So why am I talking about this? Because this task of a manager, decision making, right, and management, what are we trying to manage? If we can, like, bring it down to three things, like you all said, why do we need to understand psychology in management? Because we need to understand people, right? But also, in addition to understanding people, what is helpful? What is a helpful tool for us? To understand ourselves first, to begin with an understanding and management of ourselves. Nobody says that as a leader, as a manager, you cannot feel triggered. Nobody says that as a leader or manager, you do not have the right to your emotions, right? So you will have your own journey if you are in a position who's managing a team, or you are on the other side, if you are somebody who is being managed by another person, right? And so you need to have an understanding of wherever you are. You need to understand, who am I? What I need to manage my own self as well, and I need to manage people, and I need to manage my own work, right? My business, that whatever the job that exists in my JD, right? So I have deliverables to the organization, to my team members, as well as to myself, right? And hence, most of this management is happening from where? Either from here or from here, either from the head or from the heart, right? So, what do we really do? Hence, we are trying to understand the neurochemistry of the head. That how is it that the brain functions? So, what happens is that whatever we feel, however we experience, we make others also feel and experience in a similar manner, right? And that happens because of the mirror neurons. So, mirror neurons are are the reason why people in our team, why we attract similar people of a kind to ourselves, as they say, birds of a feather flock together. So that's the reason that why does that happen, because of the mirror neurons. So hence it's very important to do an emotional check-in for yourself every now and then. And that's where your emotional intelligence, your management of emotions comes in. That, okay, how am I feeling right now? And is it the right time for me to make any crucial decision if I am feeling triggered, if I'm feeling overwhelmed, if I'm feeling bothered by certain things? Because we all understand that decisions made at a time when we are emotionally vulnerable will probably not be the best decisions. Hence, management of self and decision making go hand in hand. And that's the reason we are talking about both brain and emotions. And finally, what happens is emotionally, we have to make these decisions all the time. And you may, as a manager, feel that you have come to a state of decision fatigue, because that's what, decision making process, when your head is continuously processing information. So what is going to happen? You will arrive at a stage of decision fatigue. And that's exactly where, the example of Steve Jobs, always wearing this one polo neck t-shirt, like the gray or the black one that he wears always. So the idea, and he says it in his interviews, that the idea behind picking up one standard color was that I have to eliminate one decision that I need to make every single day, so I can save my bandwidth, I can save my energy for making the bigger decisions which are more of value, right? Because your brain is going to have a data cap. It's almost like your the mobile data, which is going to have some limit to it. If you keep using it, it is going to reach, it is going to exhaust, and you will have to recharge it. Similar is the situation with our brains. It does have a threshold. And if we continue to try to use it beyond the threshold, of course, there is a downfall from there. It will not. And that's the reason we need to understand the psychology of self as well as of others, right? And that's exactly the reason that also helps us to understand that why people at senior positions, if you see that, they will continue to relook at problems from different perspectives, from different angles, right? That is something that also avoids the decision fatigue. Because when you consider a lot of opinions, alternatives to a particular problem, what you are doing is you are also allowing your own brain to expand, like, it's like a clay, which, or a rubber band, which has the ability to expand. And that's where the neuroplasticity of the human brain comes in. Sorry, I know I'm talking about a lot of biology and chemistry over here, but so we, because see, the human brain has the ability to expand. And that's where, that's why, if you see, look at leaders, they're always trying, exploring something new. And we are living in a day and age where AI is kind of changing algos, and every minute, every second, and there is a new discovery, new invention that comes up with AIs, right? So we also need to adapt to these changes as managers, or as people who work in a socio cultural context, so that we can tie up with our teams, we can work harmoniously with our teams. So emotional situations will always come. They may lead us as leaders, as managers, as team representatives, to to sometimes it says people don't leave bad jobs, they leave bad managers. So, who's been a bad manager? Somebody who threw a fit, somebody who didn't know how to hear others' voices, somebody who didn't know how to respectfully disagree and rather ridicule the person in a public setup. So what is happening, as a human being, I have the right to my emotions. Yeah. No one is saying that a leader, a manager will not feel perturbed. In fact, they are more prone to emotional vulnerability because the stakes are higher. The higher up your role goes, the stakes become higher. And hence you are more prone to vulnerable situations and emotional, being emotionally fragile. But this is exactly where your role as a leader comes in, where you have to think of emotions as someone who can get a seat at the table in your boardroom, and your your rational brain as something that can be the chair for that boardroom meeting. So think of it like that, where both are getting equal representation, but you are not letting your emotions chair the decision making process for you, right? Because, and why, again, I'm going back to one more time, winding up with this neurochemistry of decision making and management. Because think of it that your brain has, like, 100 billion neurons, and in a boardroom meeting or in a team where you are working together, you are working with that 100 billion times X, times the number of people who are sitting in that meeting, right? So that is the role that you need to play, to be able to influence those many billions of neurons. And that's where, why we started with the note of, think of Kusha Kapila and, Messi or Ronaldo or Kim Kardashian, all of these as, you know, think of yourself that your brain is performing the role of an influencer, like just like them. So since you are influencing in billions, hence your task becomes very, very challenging, right? Okay. I would want to project a case scenario here. Looks very basic, very simple. You can take a moment to go through this. If, say, some team leader, some manager ends up telling team member that you are always late with tasks, and it could be just one team member to another. Say you are allocated a group project, and one person says to the other, not necessarily coming from the position of power, but that, you're always late, you are never submitting your work on time. And this creates an atmosphere of conflict. So, what do you think, if you were to observe such a situation in around in your workplace? What do you think would be the best case scenario of handling such a situation? Let's try to think of, whatever theories we have spoken about so far. How can we apply those? How can we apply our understanding of human behavior to these to this scenario? Okay, what will the response be like? You are always late with tasks, says one team member to the other, creating an atmosphere of conflict. Okay, this is just one statement. You are always late with tasks. What do you think is this statement doing to the, why is this triggering? Why is this creating a state of conflict? Would you like to put down some responses in the chat box? Why do you think this scenario, just this one statement, you're always late with tasks, leading to an atmosphere of conflict? Put down in the chat box whatever you think. There is no right or wrong
Hmm.
response over here. So feel free to write down whatever feels for you, whatever is the reason.
Okay, so we have a lot of responses.
Oh, great.
Um,
Thank you.
it says somebody answered like the blaming game starts. Uh, First to know why, demotivating, poor poor work coordination. Yeah, other team member will be on the defensive and might not contribute.
Right,
Um, how they came to conclusion, listen to their answers with an open mind. That's
right.
true. It's demotivating to hear something like that. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you all for sharing your responses. And you know what's the psychology behind this? Why people say maybe it was, and also it's not what you say, it's how you say that matters. But over here, the choice of word is also tough, right? So you're always late with tasks. Maybe it was said in an irritable manner. Maybe it was said in a frustrated manner. Maybe, it was said in an angry tone, in a higher voice, right? And that has led to the situation of conflict. So, what is the psychology here behind this scenario? Um, from the childhood, since our childhood we've been using this thing that if I were to not get very good marks in my exam, what how do we defend ourselves in front of our parents, whether they've scolded us or not, forget that. But what's our defense been? Oh mom, the class average was so low, and mine is still better, right? Or that person just got lucky. I'm just so unfortunate that, whatever I did, I didn't get from whatever I left, the questions came from there, right? And my friend just got lucky. So in this scenario, what here applies is a case of presumption, assumption. When we have just said that you are always late with tasks, it is coming with a presumptive, you know, thought in your head that I am that this is a person who will always be late, who has always been late, right? So it is like you have recognized a pattern and now it has become you are putting a blame, like one of you said, and then the person's defense is going to go up. But why is it that people react in this manner? Why is it that we say these responses? Because of the attribution theory. In our heads, if I have done very well in my life, I'm going to say, I worked hard for it. And if a friend of mine or if person X in my environment has earned a lot or achieved a lot of success at work or whatever, what is my thought process? This person just got lucky, you know. And if I fail, what do I say? Oh, I worked so hard. It just didn't happen for me, right? You know, and if the other person fails, we say, इसने मेहनत नहीं की होगी. This person would not have worked hard enough. So that is the theory behind this kind of a scenario, the attribution theory of human behavior, which has been well researched by social psychologists in a lot of social scenarios, where they've said that people tend to attribute their own success to their inherent qualities, while others' success to outer qualities, like luck or fortune, and their own failure to outside qualities, whereas others' failures to their own inherent qualities. Right. So that's the attribution theory that is at play over here. So what do we really do? Rather than saying, you are always late or why are you late, can we replace this with a better, more adaptive statement? Do you have any ideas? You can put down your ideas again in the chat box. How can we frame this better? Now, this is a real scenario. This person has not given the task, not met a deadline. And maybe this has happened in the past as well. And that's why this person is frustrated. So, we are assuming maybe this assumption is also true. But is there a way of framing it better? Please feel free to write in the chat box.
So, someone's Mia has answered that I noticed that you are frequently late on submitting tasks. Is there a reason for this? Or Mavanya has written, please share the challenges you face in delivering on tasks, care and support.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've Someone's written, I've noticed that it takes you longer time than expected to complete the task. Why is this so?
Absolutely. So, thank you so much, Ruchika, for helping me with this reading out of responses. Um, what is happening over here? All of you have given fantastic responses. What you are saying is you are not calling out the person straight away, but you are accompanying it with an element of curiosity and trying to understand what came in the way of that person not accomplishing the task, right? So that is what we are talking about over here, is that can we replace such statements which sound accusatory, which sound like a blame game, into statements which will appear, which will look like, more more curiosity invoking, more like, I want to understand you. So, coming from that space of wanting to understand your team member rather than from the space of, picking up a conflict or a fight. Secondly, like what have we used here? So we've understood, we've made use of the attribution theory here to understand why people do this when they do this. And we need to, if you look at, how can we respond better to such situations, including the elements of four elements. So it's simple, it will be your takeaway tool to resolve conflicts if you can make a note of it in a lot of situations: observation, feeling, need, and request. Yeah. So what you all said had most components in that. That couple of your responses said that, okay, what came in the way of you not completing the task, or can I know what were the challenges you faced? So what are you doing? You can make a statement. Nobody's saying that you cannot point out a team member who hasn't who hasn't met their deadlines, but make it on the basis of facts that you have observed, a factual, and make a factual statement out of that observation. I see that the task has, whatever the task or assignment has, come in late. So that's an observation, right? So you are doing when, like identifying what to really say on the basis of your observation. And this observation is not triggered by your emotions. It's not influenced by your the tortoise, the rabbit brain, which is like, impulsive, right? It is, you just observe as a matter of fact. Then you you have the right to go into feelings, but in a manner which sounds very objective in nature. So you can definitely say that when this task has gotten late, it made me feel anxious about XYZ, the submission or whatever. And then you go to the need part of it, that what is the need over here, the deliverables over here, defining the timelines over here, and maybe checking with the person what their needs are. And finally, making a request that can we agree on, you know, focusing on the timelines, etc., whatever it is, right? So if we bring about this factor of observation, feeling, need, and request, more often than not, even the conversations which look very, very hard, very, very tough, are going to, kind of settle down with ease. Sure, the problem is there. The task has got delayed, but at least we can do the damage control right now by not further accelerating the problem. Because the moment the person's defense goes up, what is going to happen? They are not going to be able to, like, even listen to anything that you are going to say. They are not going to be able to process anything that you are going to say. And especially, and here another theory of human behavior comes into play, which is the social identity theory. And what is happening? Because the moment we have said you are always late with tasks, it has become a me versus you situation, right? And whenever the situation becomes me versus you, we know we are in a state of trouble, because that has already left us, like, it's more like, you are now, two organs of your body, of the same body, are trying to compete with each other. Like, uh, your heart and your liver are fighting to, one of them is fighting to exist. But you need both, right, for survival. So for an organization, it becomes that kind of a problem. And that understanding of me versus you comes from the psychological, the social identity theory, that, I have a specific identity in a social scenario. And the moment that gets kind of diluted by somebody's accusatory responses or reactions, that's when, it becomes very, very hard for people to function together. So what do you need is, you need both the liver and the heart to function. And hence you have to make the you versus me into a we, that yes, it is our problem and we need to understand how to resolve it better. So think of it like, managers are not, I'll just make a statement. I took a note of it, that managers are not referees who are holding up the scoreboard, or blowing the whistles. They are conductors who are tuning the orchestra and making sure the sound is rhythmic. So it's our job as managers, as team leaders, as representatives, and even as members of teams, even if we do not have a role as yet. But that is something we need to prove all the time through our conduct, through our behavior, that can we sustain the rhythm, rather than, like, having to keep the scoreboard against each other, right? I think, move to the next. Okay. So, yeah, this is what we can wind up the first scenario with, that the strength of the team is each individual member, and the strength of each member is the team. So, the moment we understand that, that is where we are going to. And how do we understand that? How do we ensure that the team feels that each individual member is their strength, and each member feels, that they are a important part of the team? Going back to the first thing you all said in the chat box, when Ruchika asked about what is that one characteristic you think about, when you think of an effective manager, or, you would like your leader to have, and most of you said communication, active listening, empathy. So these are the characteristics which are going to ensure that each team feels that each member is precious, and each member feels capacitated, each member feels strengthened and powerful because of the existence of the team, right? So you were all bang on when you started on that note. Okay, let's take another scenario to discuss a few more of, what are how the psychological um, theories influence how we can resolve these issues. So I feel like my ideas aren't being considered. Has that ever happened? Now, this is something I feel not only in professional, even in personal life. When you are sitting with a group of friends, this scenario can happen when you're sitting in a group of with your team members. So may not necessarily be that this is happening with a leader, it may be happening just with team of people who are equals, that one of them feels that their idea is not being considered. Why do you think this happens? Yeah, would you like to take a moment to reflect and put your responses on the chat box, please? Why do you think that one person sometimes feels that their idea is not being considered?
All right. So Salmanu says team spirit and transparency. Manish says multi-option available, lack of confidence and bad management. Okay. They are always ignored or misunderstood, being rejected, not seeing their inputs in the final deliverable. Fair enough. When they perceive that their suggestions are always ignored, misunderstanding, feeling inferior, ignored occasionally by managers.
Thank you, Ruchika, for reading out these responses. Okay, loss, lack of confidence, inferior, yes, these are the experiences, these are the emotions of the person who feels that their ideas are not being considered, right? Um, let's get a little deeper into understanding the why of it. Why is it that some people feel this way more than the others, or get triggered by this? Now, Google, the as an organization, did a study. They did a little research with 180 teams, and they found out that the success of the team's performance was contingent not on the IQ scores or the KPIs. Can you guess what that success was contingent on? Their research said that the success of teamwork was contingent on the feeling of psychological safety. Yeah. If somebody is feeling, I feel my ideas are not being considered. Now, it could be a very genuine, a rational brain will say, yeah, ye bekar idea deta hai. This person doesn't give really logical ideas, they are just in the air. So forget it, and we just kind of ignore them and move forward. So it could be one of the scenarios where the team leader or the team genuinely feels that this person speaks for the sake of speaking and the ideas are not worth it. Howsoever, we still need to continue working in a team, right? Hence, shoving away the idea under the carpet, shoving it or dismissing it completely may add to this person's sense of feeling psychologically unsafe in that workplace. So, what is going to happen? This person is going to feel misunderstood and not heard all the time. So, what do you do? Can we tweak our responses to say, replace these responses to say that, replace a response which says that, oh, this won't work, rather than saying that? Can we replace it by saying that, okay, I hear you, can you run me through the details of this? Have you thought this through at length in detail, that how would this be executable? Now you may feel that, okay, in that scenario it is just going to be a waste of time discussing this or going it at in depth with that idea. In that case, can we just say that, I we would love to dwell over this, but can we come back to this later? You and I can talk one on one. Something to the effect of saying that, okay, we are tabling your idea for now, but we can come back to it at a time so that the other person doesn't feel dismissed always. And if you feel that, yes, there is a person who is repetitively, not being of any use in one scenario, then yes, the role of the manager is also to manage roles and people and their fitment into another domain, right? We can always consider that as well. Then what comes into play over here is, this person is not actually at this time, when somebody is acknowledging the feeling that I feel my ideas are not considered, is not looking at the compensation package in the moment, right? Is not This person is not comparing my compensation versus others in the organization, but and is not comparing the job title of one with the other. What they are comparing in the moment is, does my voice matter as much as the voice of another person? And that is what in the domain of socio-personal psychology is referred to as the equity theory. Equality versus equity, right? We always talk about that, no? That the equity theory says that the person is not trying to see, the what they're looking at is an equal opportunity, right? And in this case, they are comparing whether their voice is getting enough opportunity as others voice or not. In such cases, what can we do to minimize the time spent, on when you are, it's very understandable that when you're sitting in a conference room, a boardroom, and you're wanting to come to a conclusion, and you feel that there's not enough space, there's not enough time, a temporal space for everybody to speak up. Can we do an airtime audit? Like, can we give chits of paper and say that, why don't you all take 5 minutes, brainstorm, put your ideas down on a piece of paper, and then we discuss, so that we limit the number of words and give equal opportunity to all to. But see, the idea over here is to understand the psyche behind the feelings and the behaviors of each person while we are working in collaboration with others, right? And the self determination theory over here says that what this person is actually feeling bad about is um, is actually not that the idea didn't get included. It is the sense of competence that they feel has been challenged. Because if you look at, in this book, Daniel Pink's book on motivation, where the author talks about that the motivation doesn't come from internal. All this while we've heard about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, intrinsic values, extrinsic motivators, etc. Daniel Pink says that motivation comes from a sense of autonomy, a sense of control, and a sense of purpose, right? What over here, the a sense of competence, autonomy, competence, and purpose. So what is being challenged over here is the person's sense of competence. that is being challenged when their idea is being dismissed. So this view comes from the self-deterministic theory that this person is obviously going to fall apart and is not going to be able to contribute to their best and is not able to be going to continue giving their best in that team or in that organization where they feel unseen and unheard, right? So we have to ensure that that each person feels equally heard in this domain, right? Okay, so the single biggest problem in communication is the illusion that it has taken place. You know, a lot of times misunderstandings begin from this perspective, the illusion that communication has happened. We feel that, we have said and it has been internalized and understood. But more often than not, we operate from a position of assumptions and presumptions, and we are unable to have a heart to heart conversation, a communication which involves all components. Why I'm doing this while I'm talking and I'm asking for your responses, because I'm sharing the screen, and the chat screen is not like readily to my access. Why am I doing this? I'm requesting Ruchika to help me read out the responses. Why do you think? Any responses to that why am I asking her to uh, do
Not
this for
as
me?
yet. Not as yet.
Okay. Okay, no worries. So the idea over here is that,
Okay.
yeah, okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, yeah,
Someone
please go
said
ahead.
you're giving chances so that we can communicate properly.
Okay, great. Yes, thank you for saying that. So what the communication is not just, me speaking, right? It is also you listening. That is another component that you said, active listening. It's also making sure, I mean, I may be speaking and you may be listening, but if I'm speaking in Spanish and you don't understand Spanish, how will I be assured that whatever I'm speaking is getting communicated, right? So I need to make sure that there is no noise on the way, that whatever I'm saying is being heard and understood and internalized the way, of course you will internalize, each of you are is after the session is going to have their own sense of feedback and how you internalize it, but I need to also make sure what I'm saying is exactly what is being received. The earlier times there used to be those landline phones, which used to, and even now, if you are in a mobile, you're talking and you are in a poor network area, the voice lags, right? So you have to make sure what you are saying, the other person is receiving it the same way. And this is what the biggest problem in communication happens, and more so in the workplace, that we assume it has taken place without ensuring that whatever we have spoken has been received by the person, and without inviting any feedback. So when I'm asking for you, requesting for your responses, it is playing a dual purpose for me. One is I'm ensuring that whatever I'm saying, is reaching you, and you have understood the question the way I have said. And second is it is also giving me a feedback. If I'm not getting enough responses, it gives me a feedback, So it is a loop, and we need to make sure that we follow that loop. Okay, another case scenario. Deadlines pile up, emails never stop, you feel drained, and yet you are perceived as unapproachable by your team members. Do you feel that happens at leadership positions, at positions where you feel that you are running a lot of chores, and yet sometimes when you receive feedback, you find out that people still feel that, oh, you are not reachable, this person is not very approachable, right? So what is the psychology behind it? When we internalize this, So we have to also see how we can respond to such a situation that encourages openness and creates a culture of feedback. So continuing from our previous point about communication, and feedback being an important thing, important factor to it, that whatever, this comes from the space of the theory, in psychological sense, it comes from the theory of self compassion, that you know okay, there are a lot of people who are going to feel that you are approachable. There may be a few who feel you are not approachable. There may be many who may feel you are not approachable, and yet, without realizing, you are still juggling between lot of roles. So what do we do over here is implement the theory of self compassion. Being kind to yourself is really very, very important. A lot of times we may have told ourselves this story that I have to look busy all the time, because only then I am going to look valuable to the organization or to the people around me, right? But what is the main purpose of my existence in that organization, or my role, or my job description over there? The idea is to be fully available for wherever, for how much ever time that you are, and hence taking micro breaks, practicing self compassion in a visible setup is very important. Because why? Because going back to the first theory of psychology, the mirror neurons, one of the first ones that we spoke about. Why? Because if you do it in a visible manner, if you practice self compassion in a visible manner, then others learn to also emulate that behavior from you. So they also learn to take micro breaks, because they learn that, each of us has a tendency to fall for, we can be tough on ourselves, but at the same time, if we come back to a self realization and empathy and compassion for our own selves, then we can use these micro breaks and practicing self compassion as a strategy to come back to being more readily available for the work and for the team members that we are working with. Second is that, like I said, that, a lot of times um, we feel that, I have to look useful, I have to look busy, and only then I'll be considered more valuable. It is about the story we tell ourselves about ourselves in our head. So whenever we are receiving feedback, I often I've been doing a lot of sessions with adolescents, and like teenagers and youth, and I often tell them, think about feedback as a corner in your house which has the strongest Wi-Fi connection. you know so positive feedback is like that. It will enable you, it will, make your conversation better, it will make your connection better with your team members, it will do good to you. So think of positive feedback as that Wi-Fi connection which is the strongest at that point, and think of negative feedback as those extra heavy apps on your phone which do nothing good but only consume your space in your phone. And the moment you reach that threshold, you think of deleting those apps, right? So your approach also has to be quite, like, check your own battery is what I would like to say. In today's digital age, I think that's a metaphor that goes well in today's day and age. So you have to reframe that story internally for yourself, because the stories we tell, in fact, research in the domain of cognitive psychology and in the domain of memory says that memory is a very constructive process. We construct memories in our heads depending on not on actually on not on the factual incidents, but we recreate memories in our heads depending on the emotions we felt during those incidents. And that is the story in our own head we continue building, right? So if my emotion about somebody telling me that, oh, you are not an approachable boss, if my emotion is very negative about it, then I'm going to continue to repeat that story in my head, that, I'm useless as a boss, I'm not approachable, I'm not relatable, and that is also going to pull me down, right? If I won't be able to add any value, right? So, what do we need to do? We need to reframe that story. And this comes from the psychological theory of cognitive reframing. That cognitive reframing actually enables us to reform our neurochemistry. That's what, neurolinguistics is also based on. How do you cognitively reframe your stories? And finally, get to know yourself better. We all have open areas about our lives, we all have blind spots about our lives. So an understanding of self is so crucial, so important. If you feel that you are unapproachable, then in that case, what are the things that I can work on? So hence we are saying that how can you respond to this situation in a manner that builds trust, encourages openness, and creates a culture of feedback. That, okay, you have invited feedback or you have received feedback, right? But we also, with that feedback, we want to make use of that knowledge to encourage openness and to build a culture of trust. So how do we do that? So being busy is inevitable in organizations and places with a lot of task force, etc. But being available is an option, and we all can work on that availability. It's not a matter of, it's more a matter of what we prioritize in the moment, is what we are saying. So in this case, the theory that comes into mind is the self awareness theory, right? You can't pour from an empty cup, and hence you need to be self aware. Yeah. So putting together, what all we have discussed, I'll just quickly run you through. I do understand that we may not have so much time now left. But what do we do to ensure psychological safety in teams? So I'm just trying to now kind of bring together the point. So what are the gap areas? Mostly the gap areas are unmet needs, if like we saw through these scenarios, that either it is a need of a manager that is not being met, or of a team member that is not being met, or of the business or the organization that is not being met. So what do we do? What tools do we use to ensure that those needs are met? So, one of the most important that you all beautifully pointed out to begin with was communication. Communication means having a dialogue, ensuring that speaking and receiving of information is happening along with feedback, and a dialogue which invokes curiosity for us to understand others' emotions. So, to uncover the emotional drivers of the person, like what are the emotional triggers of that person. Secondly, groupthink can be a gap area. Now, what is groupthink? It comes from the theory, the social theory of group polarization, which basically means that when people of a certain thought process sit together and start discussing something that one strongly believes in, on a scale of 0 to 10, if one believes in that thing at point 9, and another one is somewhere in between 5 and 6, and then another one is 8, and then another one is somewhere at 5, what is going to happen? Those who were at 5 and 6 are going to start thinking towards 8, and, like, to that strength their thought will become. So which means groupthink is basically thinking in extremes, right? And that can happen, and that can overpower the situation. So that can become a gap in the domain of functioning effectively. So, what can the managers do? What can the team leaders do over here? Is that rather than letting a group, run their own, run on their own like spree, work on the group dynamics, the team dynamics. And how can we do that? Again, going back to an element of communication, which is active listening and common goal framing. Like, how can we come to, we discussed earlier in one of those scenarios, that how can we make it from a you and I think into a we think, a shared goal, a common goal? How can we come to that? And finally, there can be actually leadership gaps, right? So what do we do? In such cases, we have to do crisis management. If there are real leadership gaps, then we need to make sure that burnout needs to be prevented. And that can come only through, like I've been saying repetitively, self awareness and role modeling. So some of these theories, again, just put them together, that examples, some of them, the theories that I was naming in between, and but they were not mentioned here. So some of these psychological tools which can be used, the cognitive reframing theory, that what's another way to look at this situation which is less draining but still truthful, right? So you are reframing the narrative about that situation along with your team members in your head. Second is the self deterministic theory, that can you differentiate between your energizers and your drainers, right? I said in the last case scenario where the person is being tough on themselves because they feel that they are not approachable, the self deterministic theory comes in. So you find out what is energizing your battery and what is draining your battery, and hence you differentiate between them and work through that. Then conservation of resources theory, for burnout prevention, for ensuring that least time is lost, so identify your recovery rituals, your micro breaks, like we spoke in between. The Ben Franklin effect, which says that you are trying to give people the chance. So could you help me refine the pitch deck before tomorrow's meeting? This effect says that when I don't like someone, which may genuinely be the case when it's never all hunky dory. When I do not like somebody that I am supposed to be working with, let me go and ask them for their help a little bit. What happens is, when this person feels and knows that, I don't like him or her or them, and I go and ask for help, what is going to happen is that in turn, they are going to develop a sense of affinity towards me. So it will become more like a mutual exchange, that one person was not fond of another person, but because I have shown my vulnerability to this person, that I need your help, they also start liking you. So it works both ways. The spotlight effect, if you want your team members, like, you don't try to be perfect, try to be present. So uh, if you do not want them to, mostly, most of us think that I am the same, like in the teenage years, that's the thought we grow up with. When I've entered the room, everybody's looking at me, I'm the hero. So when you are climbing the ladder up, it starts feeling like the spotlight is on me, right? But the idea here is to bring each member back to the present moment. And finally, the mirror effect. This is what we have spoken about as well. So, leadership is not about being in charge, it is about taking care of those in charge. This is what Simon Sinek, who's the author of Start With Why, says. And I feel it is a strong quote that helps us wrap up the session. So, I would like to, if you will allow me, uh, I would like to play one song over here, just to ensure that we leave. Um, are you able to see the screen with the song on, everybody?
We can see the screen.
Do you see the song on the YouTube? Okay, it is
No.
on, right? Do you see it now? Like, no? Okay. To me, it is showing like it is sharing. Okay, wait, I'll have to. Sorry, I'll just share the screen again. I would like to just end on a musical note because you all have heard my voice a lot by now. ओके आई वंडर ये शेयर क्यों नहीं करने दे रहा. ओके. Oops, it's again brought me back to the. It's not playing from here. I am so sorry.
You want to send me the link? I can maybe post it in the chat box. Or
No, no, just give me a moment. I
sure.
wonder ये मैंने खोला तो हुआ है. It's open on my window. It's just that it's not showing me on the window. I hope there are no entire screen also it is not showing. Okay. Yes, got it. Is it visible now, Ruchika?
Yes, yes, thank you. Yeah.
Okay, great. Lovely, lovely. Okay. Yes.
I can't hear the audio. I can see the song being played.
Sorry, sorry. I thought I have shared every possible thing, microphone and all. Okay, I go here and I go here. It says it is playing everything. Okay. Uh, is it audible now?
No,
Okay. Should I send the link and one of you can probably play it then?
yeah, let
Because
me
I think
just.
I shared my audio, video, everything, and still it is
Uh,
here.
Pasha, can you guide? Okay, yeah, there you go. You put it in the chat box.
Yes, I did. Yes.
Hmm. Okay. Well, thank you so much for the insightful session, Dr. Asta. I had an amazing time learning about, how to handle workplace, the psychology, and understanding much deeper insight into it.
Thank you, Ruchika, for having me over today. Sorry, I just got busy reading through the comments. Yeah.
No problem. Sorry, but can I request you to please keep sharing your screen if that's okay?
Yes, yes,
And
absolutely.
I would like to enlighten all our participants who've joined us from across the globe about Uni Athena.
Yes.
Thank you.
So, yeah, so I will just share the screen. And
And then I have a few questions in the chat box that I thought we'll answer live. So maybe post that in the next 10 minutes, we'll answer questions. Okay.
perfect, perfect, perfect. Sure. So I'm going back to the presentation.
There are a lot of participants thanking you for the wonderful session.
Thank you all. You've been a great audience. We'll come back to interacting a little more. I know I was not able to read the comments at that time. Is the screen visible, Ruchika?
Yes, it is. Yes,
Oh,
it is.
great.
Yeah.
I'll just put it on from. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
If you
Here
can
you
go on the 21st and put it in the slideshow mode, please.
go. Okay. You want in the slideshow? Sorry, I went. Okay. This is appearing like this only. Say setup slideshow. I don't think I'm able to.
Okay, no problem. I will share the screen. It's okay. Can you tell me if you can see my screen, Dr. Asta? Is it visible?
Okay, wait. Sorry, my screen sharing was still on, so I have
Okay.
to come back to. Yes, yes.
Yeah,
Perfect.
okay. Thank you. So thank you so much, everyone, all the participants for joining us. I would just like to take about 5 to 10 minutes to tell you all about Uni Athena. Um, as you can see on your screen, that we are an online education institution wherein we offer courses that are flexible, affordable, and accessible. Okay, so please do visit our website. The link will be shared in the end. It is www.uniathena.com. We have over 4 million learners who've enrolled them with us. Yeah. So we are an edtech organization offering free learning, upskilling courses. Okay. We have a variety of short courses. We have a variety of academic courses. Uh, our learners are in 146 plus countries. Okay. We have 10 plus university partners. We have over 700 plus courses that we offer on our website. So please feel free to go through and reach out. Uni Athena was started in 2019, known as Westford Education Group. Okay. And sorry, we've been in the education sector since 2008. Okay. So these are the names of some of our partners. So we have tie-ups with Aberte University, UCAM, Unimarconi, which is GMU, CIQ, Acacia, CMI, OTHM. Yeah. So what do we offer? Yeah, we offer short courses wherein there are free courses which require about 4 hour basic to about 4 to 5 week MBA essentials. Okay, there are 20 plus different domains that we cover, and our academic courses are backed by post graduation credit backed program, and we also offer doctorate programs. So we, as you all can see on your screen, we have doctorate, masters, MBA, microcredit, and bachelor courses. And for short courses, we have diploma, executive diploma, basics and essentials, marketing, and MBA essentials. Now, I'm sure some of you must be wondering why Uni Athena, or rather, why only Uni Athena? We are 100% online, okay, which means you need to go through video lectures. We have all the reading material up on the website. We conduct online workshops that you all can attend. Payment that fits your pace. We have a variety of payment plans. There is a pay as per you go. There are flexible plans, monthly, fast track plans. So please get in touch with one of the admissions in charge and you can ask your queries. Okay. We have self-paced course duration, so you learn at your own pace. We have globally accepted and accredited partners. We offer personalized academic advisors to handhold you during the course and dedicated research supervisors. There's modular course delivery. Okay, so the courses are divided into various modules, and modules are broken down into units for easier understanding and comprehension. Now, if you are looking for a career in management, you're going to love this because we have some of the courses that we have. Okay. So there's MBA in operations and project management, MBA in quality management, MBA in industrial safety, information technology, IT in energy management, construction and safety, regular MBA, MBA in business analytics, global MBA, executive MBA, MBA in general management, business information and data analytics. international MBA, accounting and finance, family business, blockchain management, marketing management, AI in business. Yes, you heard it right. We do have MBA in AI in business. We have MBA in digital transformation and MBA in UI UX design and digital product strategy, which is going to release shortly. These are some of the topmost recommended MBA courses. There are more. Okay. Now these are some of our testimonials, learner testimonials, wherein they've as you can see, she's from Singapore. When he says that she couldn't have imagined, but Uni Athena made it possible. So thank you. Then Andrea says that the reward, of course, outweighs any of the challenges. Yeah. Please do reach out to the email addresses and the phone number mentioned. Do visit our website, which is www.uniathena.com. Yeah. I will try and answer your queries that you all have uh, mentioned in the chat box.